Hello, my name is Peter. This is the Esoteric Order of Gamers, and today I'm going to talk about an upcoming game by Awaken Realms called B.E.L.O.W, the Asylum. And you're probably wondering, well, what does B.E.L.O.W stand for? I can tell you it stands for Bureau of Exorcisms, Liminality and Occult Warfare. There you go. Now you're probably thinking, oh, that sounds a bit Hellboy to me. They have a similar kind of bureau, but this game mixes elements of stuff like that with things like the Silent Hill video game series, with Stranger Things and the concept of an alternate universe below the one that we're in. All these things are coming together in a horror-themed board game, which I'm going to tell you about in this video. But before I get started, I must tell you this is just a prototype. This is a handmade prototype that Awaken Realms sent to me. And by the way, I'm not charging for this video and my opinions are completely my own. So everything that you see here is subject to change. There may be complete redesigns, there may be changes in the gameplay. This is just the prototype as it stands now. I'm going to give you an idea of how the game plays, and then I'm going to give you some personal thoughts, what I think about the game after spending a bit of time with it. Okay, let's get started. We're going to descend into the horror-filled depths of a monster-packed asylum and the dimension next to it in B.E.L.O.W, the Asylum. So let me give you a rough idea of the rules. As I said, things are subject to change, but what we have is a fantastic matte board. Check out the size of it. It is absolutely huge. I can't even fit it in the frame of my camera. There's so much of it here. Now this is a cooperative game. I've got two characters here that I'm playing with. Let me get that box out of the way. They are called the Conductor, Oliver Chambers, and Blade, Kazuyo Nakamura. And they have completely different abilities. They're actually quite distinctive, different characters. And I'm sure there'll be more characters in the final game. There's also a set of 3 basic creatures called fiends. In this game, they are the nurse, and there she is. She's a nurse with a hypodermic. Yes, there's truly nothing more horrifying than a nurse with a hypodermic. We've got the skinwalker. There it is. It's walking, and it's got bits of skin hanging off it. It's truly horrible. And then finally, we've got the needle claw, which is a large and horrible miniature. There's the needle claw. He's got lots of hypodermics sticking out of his back. It's really into hypodermics, this game, but it is an asylum, you know, so there you go. So I think there are going to be sets in the final game of 3 fiends. So that'll change. Lots of these elements will change depending on the game you're playing. We've also got one big bad, and this is called the Monarch. And this is a truly horrible thing. And there's just flesh, and there's a little girl hanging off it. I don't know why. You can also see the influence in here of J-horror type films like The Grudge, films which, you know, tend to have sort of little girls with long dark hair in them and, you know, The Ring and all that kind of stuff. So what is the game? Well, as I said, it's cooperative and it's kind of a tactical board game. You're moving around on this board, basically trying to place a whole lot of seals on these central rings. And these 2 rings, as you can see, spin. The outer ring will always spin 45 degrees each time it's turned. The inner ring moves 90 degrees. You're trying to place seals in here to seal the monarch in the other world. What is the other world, you ask? Well, we've got the above here, which is this side of the board, and the below here. Each one of these worlds is made up of 4 tiles, which you can mix and match. They're double-sided. But as soon as you set up one side, you have to have a matching side on the other side. So for example, if you have this tile as A2, this one has to be below A2. And you match those up, and what you end up with is 2 worlds which have the same room setup. They may have different doorways, but the rooms all match on either side. And the reason they do that, of course, is that one is a dimension below the other one, and you can shift between these 2 dimensions. This is one of the coolest things about this game. It's very, very cool. There's lots of cool things going on in this game, but this shifting between worlds is a fundamental mechanic and makes the game very interesting. Now, it is possible just to randomly shift between these worlds under certain circumstances, but usually you're going through these rifts, which look like these, and 2 of these make up a rift. You'll have one in the upper world and a matching one in the below world. And characters and the fiends can move between these rifts. Also, the monarch, as it starts getting more powerful as the game continues, will be creating more rifts. And if you create so many rifts that you run out of them, it's game over for the players. Other events will see a swift end to your adventuring, one of which is if any of the players die. That's the end, game over. And you also fail if you have to draw a new event card. There are a bunch of event cards in 3 different chapters, and if there are none left, you also lose the game. How do you win the game? Well, you have to place seals on these spaces on the rotating tracks. And the tricky thing is that you have to place these seals going from the start space, which is down here, through these tiles and have a contiguous path going to the center space. And there is a little space in the central model, though I believe this model is an optional extra, or there's a space in the middle there where you place a final seal. Not only do you have to place all of those seals in that path, but you also have to place a number of ritual objects in these spaces around the board. There's one for a candle, one for a skull, and one for a book, and there's another space for any of those 3 components that you can put in there. However, you haven't quite won. You still have to escape the asylum, so you have to get back to the entrance space, which is over here. It's quite difficult. The turn sequence is nice and straightforward. The first player, the one with the leading agent token, and they get to do 3 actions, or 4 actions if they've upgraded their action track. And then at the end of their actions, they have to draw one of these shimmer cards. I'll tell you what those do in a moment. Then the other players get to do their actions, and after their actions, they draw a shimmer card. And then finally, there's a phase for the bad guys. This is called the event phase, and you'll be drawing the next card in the series of events. As I said, there are 3 chapters. You'll turn this over, and it tells you to do various things. This icon here tells you to rotate the outer ring a number of times equal to the number. All the fiends that are in rooms with rifts shift to the opposite world. Then fiends move. These are the 3 different types of fiends. They will move a number of rooms equal to the number. And then we have some more events which may take place if there are a certain number of rifts open. You may spawn more fiends on the map. And also the big bad, the monarch, might get activated. The final thing you do in each event phase is check to see if your character is in a room with fiends, in which case you will draw a fiend attack card. Here they are, and they have various horrible things that happen to you. Now, you only draw one of these when you're in a room with multiple fiends because the card itself will tell you what to do. For example, this one, Legion, says resolve the special effect of the strongest fiend in the room. Nice little combat system here, very easy and quick to operate. I'll tell you more about what happens when you attack the fiends a bit later. So that's the turn sequence, super easy. So what do you do when it's your turn and you have a number of actions to take? Basically, you can move up to the number of rooms shown on your agent board. Now, you have a lovely agent board which has all the information you need. This is subject to redesign, of course, but it has a action tracker on the left here. It has tracks for your potential, which is sort of your magic using ability. Your stamina, which you expend for various things like attacking, or as it's also called in this game, banishing. The movement rate that you have, if you start here, it shows you that Blade moves 2 spaces when he does a movement action, but that can be upgraded. His attack track, which is the dice he rolls when he attacks, and his health. I'll tell you about the health system a bit later. So you check on your board. In the case of Blade, his cube is in the starting space, so he can move 2 rooms in a move action. If you do a move action and during the move action you want to move through one of these rifts, it'll also cost you 1 stamina, so you can move through to the other world, whether below to above or above to below. You can also banish for an action. Now, banish and attack are kind of a bit interchangeable at this stage, but basically what you do is you roll the number of dice that's on your attack track here. There's a blue dice and a yellow dice, and they have 2 icons on them. This one is an attack or damaging action, and the other one is an arrow, which is a push action. And you roll these, and basically you look at the fiend card that you're attacking, and you can see here that it takes 2 of those attack or damage symbols to kill the nurse, and it takes 1 to push it. Now, if you got 3 of those push icons, you could push the nurse 3 spaces away from you. So this is great. The monsters are quite nasty in this game. You're not always about to kill them. You just might want to push them out of the way and get them out of your way into other rooms so you can do what you're doing. It also gives the monsters a lot of character. For example, the needle claw here, you cannot kill. You can only shift it to another world. If you roll 6 damage on the needle claw, you manage to shift it into the other world and get it out of your way, but you can never kill it. By the way, when you do a banish stroke attack action, you have to spend 1 stamina. The other action is closing a rift. Now, because you will lose the game if you use all the rifts, this is very important. You have to have one character on one side of a rift and another character in the other world on the other matching side of the rift. And then you do this action and you get to remove the rift and all adjacent rifts, so rifts in adjacent rooms, and then you get to apply a seal. Now, I'll tell you about applying seals a little bit later. That's very important. Your final action is a prepare action. That allows you to gain 1 potential, gain 1 stamina, and you can pick up items and components in your room and swap them with other agents in your room. Now, components are the things that I mentioned before, which are the skull, the book, and the candle. And items, you'll see these item counters on the board like so. If you pick these up, you discard the token and you get to draw an item from the item deck. These are various helpful things. They're usually one-use items. And when you get an item, you have a choice. You can either take the item and keep it and use it later on, or you can throw away the card and get the ritual component on the card. In this case, it's a candle, and this is how you get yourself more ritual components. Now, as I mentioned, at the end of all your actions, you have to draw a shimmer card. Now, shimmer is the mysterious stuff that is in the below and kind of sticks to you, basically, and it can make you shift between worlds. So you draw a shimmer card at the end of your turn. It's got a number on it and some various things that happen. If you're in the below, you might have the monarch moving towards you. Otherwise, you do this action all the time, so fiends could move towards you, horrible things can happen. But the number on there is very important because what you do is move your little shimmer marker on your track that number of spaces. If you get to the end of the shimmer track, obviously the shimmer has gained so much power that it pushes you through into the other world. So you reset your track and you go to the mirroring room in the other world. Now, the mirroring room basically just means the matching room that's in the other world to the one you're in. So if you're in the below in room 22 and your shimmer track goes all the way up to the top, you're going to find yourself in room 22 in the above. Now, sometimes this can be incredibly inconvenient because you're just about to do something and then you find yourself disappearing and appearing in the other world. Or sometimes it can be great because you might be in a room full of monsters that are about to kill you and suddenly you disappear and go into the other dimension, which is very handy. So I think it's time to talk about seals. Now, seals are what you place on the central board, and as I said, you have to get an unbroken track from the start to the middle. And that's one of the requirements you need to fulfill to win the game. Seals are just these red cubes here. There are also greater seals, these purple cubes, which are used in certain circumstances. So you can get seals by various ways. There are cards on the board here, and this says that it costs an action. It also says that it prompts opportunity attacks. So if there are any fiends in the same room, they will attack you if you're going to do this action with them in the same place. And then you get to apply one seal and reveal this card. And these cards will modify the rooms on the board and give you things that you can do there. So for example, this one is Familiar Window. So for an action, you can place your agent in any other room that has got eyes. Now, eyes refer to icons on the board. There are different icons that show different types of rooms. There are eyes rooms, ritual circle rooms, and surgery table rooms. So you place the card there and it modifies that room for the rest of the game and gives you something else to do in that space. Okay, you've got your little red seal. What are you going to do with it? Well, you get to place it on the central board. So if we reset this board to the start, so our first seal will have to go in this space here, which links to the start space. Now, when you place a seal, you'll see there's an icon underneath it and you get that bonus. In this case, you get to move the spell track along. There's a spell track here. You can move this cube along one space. If you get to the end of that track, you reset it and you can draw a spell card, which can give you some powerful effects, particularly handy later on in the game. Now, when you've got a seal in a space there, next time you place a seal, you don't have to follow one direction. You can place it either side of that initial cube. It can go there or it can go there. And it can even go across the line into another disc if you've got a greater seal. Various actions in the game allow you to get a greater seal. I'll tell you how in a moment. And that allows you to cross over this icon and into the central ring, giving you more options. So you can spread out through these various pathways and not only construct the path that'll take you to the center, but also allow you to decide which upgrades and special bonuses you get depending on where you place the seals. So there's lots of interesting choices here. Some of these icons allow you to upgrade your abilities on the sheet here. Others, if you place them, for example, in these spaces, which have an A written on them, that one will mean you have to discard a skull icon and put it into the skull space here. Remember, by the end of the game, you're going to need a ritual component in each of these 4 spaces, and those spaces allow you to do it. Also, when you place on one of those spaces, you'll be able to upgrade your ability cards. You have special abilities as well. You can get more abilities, or you can place cubes on these brackets here and make the ability that you've got even more powerful. You can also place them on the magnifying glass spaces to draw items, so you can get extra items. And remember, when you draw an item, you can decide to trade it in immediately for a ritual component. So there are various ways of getting seals, but one of the most effective is to fulfill one of these rituals. And there are increasing levels of rituals here. You only see the face-up one, so we start off with a lesser ritual. This allows you, if you fulfill a certain requirement, to get a greater seal. And also, if you fulfill some optional steps, you can get even more seals. Now, the tricky thing about these rituals, which is really interesting, is that you've got to do the top action to get the greater seal, but the other steps are optional. So if you decide that every time you do one of these rituals, you want to make sure that all your ducks are in a row so you can get the other seals as well, you might find yourself running out of time. Those event cards are going to run out, and you're going to run out of time and lose the game. However, if you completely ignore the optional steps, you might not have enough seals to complete the game as well. So it's really interesting decision space there. So for this one, for example, in a room with a surgery table, that's the icon for the surgery table, you resolve one shimmer card. So you draw a shimmer card, and that gives you a greater seal. However, if you happen to have one of these book components in a room with a magic circle icon, you get another seal. And if you happen to have a skull in a room with an eyes icon, you get another seal. So you're basically running around the board trying to fulfill these requirements to get the seals to place in the middle. But remember, there's all these horrible beasties after you at the same time, and then knocking down your health and attacking you and doing terrible things. So there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of balls to juggle at the same time, which make the game quite interesting. But wait, there's more. There's so much going on in this game, and this is one of the things that I find interesting about it. The ritual components, you can actually place these during certain times. Now, when you do a prepare action, you can just drop a ritual component in a room. But there is a reference sheet here, which tells you you can do, as a free reaction, drop these components in a room to get these buffs. So if you drop a skull when you're trying to banish something, you get an extra couple of icons of whatever type you want. If you drop a candle in a room when you're doing a prepare action, you get to gain all your stamina and your potential instead of just one of each. And if you're being attacked and you drop a book, you can avoid drawing opportunity attack cards. So not only do you get these buffs when you drop these ritual components, and remember, you need the components for the central board as well, so you've got to keep some on your dashboard. But when you drop these, you'll find that the components are building up on the board, and then they refer to these rituals. So as I said before, the optional step for this ritual means there's a book in a room with a magic circle. So if you make sure that you do that action in the room with the magic circle icon and you drop a book there, it may be useful for fulfilling the optional step on this ritual and getting yourself an extra seal. Not only that, if you look at the item cards, you'll see that some of them are more powerful if they have ritual components around them. So for this one, it's a consecrated blade. You can discard this to get +3 damage on an attack. However, for each interconnected skull with the space you're in, you get an extra damage icon. And when I say interconnected, it means adjacent rooms. So if you have a line of 3 skulls all connecting to the room you're in, you're going to get extra damage. It's quite challenging to line all these ducks up correctly, but if you do, you can get some really nice buffs and extra abilities. It's great. Now, the fiends aren't just going to sit there while you're dropping ritual components and getting yourself seals. They're going to attack you. If you do one of those actions that has the opportunity attack icon on it, and they are all of them except for banishing, basically moving, closing rifts and prepare, and also other actions from items and things like that, and doing rituals, all of them have an opportunity attack icon. And if that happens, you look at the card for the monsters that are in your space. Let's say, for example, there's 1 nurse and 1 skinwalker in your space. Their total opportunity attacks at the top of the card is 3. That means you draw 3 fiend attack cards and you look at the opportunity attacks space at the top. You total them all up. That'll tell you how much health to lose. The health system is quite interesting too for characters. It goes through a certain number of levels. If you look at the health track on your dashboard, it's only got 3 spaces on it. And in fact, this card here is supposed to have the 0 space. So for example, if Blade lost 3 health, he would go 1, 2, 3 on the card. Now, if he lost another health, this resets to 3 and then you execute this card. In this case, it says you gain 2 potential and 2 stamina. Each of these chunks of 3 health go through 3 different cards. And then finally, when you get to the final space, you will die. So you've got a total of 12 hit points. But unfortunately, as you go past a health card and you discard it and resolve it, then when you heal, you can't go back over that health card unless you have a very special spell or something like that that lets you regain a health card. So it's challenging. It's always beating you down in health, and it's very difficult to heal health. Quite apart from the fiends, we've got the nasty Monarch. Now, they're activated if you resolve a Monarch activation card, which will usually, you'll have an instruction to do so on an event card, and you'll draw one of those, and it has a whole list of things. There are some things that always happen, and there are some things that happen depending on the chapter you're in, chapter 2 or chapter 3. He's much slower in chapter 1, and in fact, he can't even cross over into the above world until it's chapter 3. He's going to hang down in the below and be less of danger. However, as he starts moving around in chapter 2, he will be placing rifts, and we don't want too many of those rifts, do we? He also has the ability to give characters trauma cards. These are these cards here. You get one face down like this. You can spend a potential to peek at it, but usually the Monarch will activate this at some point and you will have to resolve and then discard it. And it usually has some unpleasant effect. Finally, the Monarch has its own attack cards, and as you go through these, its values will change. What it takes to damage it and what it takes to push it. However, you can't kill the Monarch. Once you get below this level of damage, you turn over the card and it'll give you a reaction ability, which usually is quite advantageous. You've done some damage to the Monarch, so you get a bit of a reward. It does also have opportunity attack values, which are pretty nasty. So, I think I've covered most of it. Now, this may seem overwhelming, but I have to say I read through the rules a couple of times and then played it without any difficulty. Had a few things I had to ask questions about because this is just a prototype, but on the whole, it flowed really nicely and I didn't have any problems internalising all of those rules. They actually are quite straightforward. So what do I think of Below the Asylum? Well, let me tell you. Well, I had a lot of fun with this prototype. And in fact, I'm going to say that this is probably the first time ever that I'm going to continue playing with a prototype. Usually prototypes just give you a little taste of the game and you play it and you think that's okay, it needs a bit more work. And yes, this does need a little bit more fine tuning, I think. It's very, very hard. I've played it several times and haven't come anywhere near winning. There's a lot of things to juggle, as I said, getting those seals on the board, getting the ritual components down and still escaping the asylum alive. And the onslaught of monsters and bad things from the event cards can be quite overwhelming. That said, however, it made me want to come back to it and try again. And that is the identifying factor of a good game. I didn't think, oh, that's too hard, I don't want to play that again. I thought, oh, that was really challenging. What'll I do different next time? Now, I've said before that I'm not a huge fan of co-op games, but I like these kind of co-op games. This is a shared experience, a story, you're doing things all the time. I don't like co-op games where you're just sort of following a kind of process, and that's why I had a problem with some other games I've been talking about recently. These kind of games are fun as a shared experience, I think, because you can all do different things, but you have these challenging goals that you've got to meet and lots of different interesting ways to fulfill them. Let me get a few little things out of the way before I get on to more positive stuff. And a lot of this stuff might change before the game finishes. At the moment, there's a little bit of a problem with tiny rooms. Some of these rooms are small and you can pack lots of miniatures into every space. So especially with the Monarch, who is huge, if you put him into one of these tiny rooms, he just about fills it and you can't fit any other characters and fiends in there easily. I'm not sure what they're going to do about that, but that's a little bit of a problem. The ritual components, I love the whole mechanic of them and how they affect the board state and how you can use items in the right place and you can activate extra ritual bonuses. but they're a little bit stingy with the ritual components at this stage. You have to discard an item straight away to get one. That may change in the game as well as they balance things up. Again, these are actually small criticisms that might be completely fixed, and they're not game-changing problems anyway. I didn't find them anything particularly negative about this game experience. This is a horror game, and it's very much the cliches of modern horror. You know, demon nurses with hypodermics and things like that. The only thing I missed a little bit was possibly a little bit of stealth would have been nice, because that feeling like you're trying to sneak through something, but it's not really that kind of game, so I can forgive it for that. Also, the abilities are interesting, and I love the fact that we've got such distinctive characters here, but it's a little bit hard to upgrade these cards and get feeling a lot more powerful. Again, something else that might change by the time this comes out. That's that out of the way. Here are my positive thoughts. As I said, lots of interesting things to do, which I love, lots of choices to make. Where am I going to place my seals? Am I going to concentrate on upgrading my character, upgrading my abilities, or am I going to get more items? Am I going to, when I do these rituals, are we going to just go for the greater ritual and get the greater seal, or we're going to try and match up these other ones and spend time matching up these other ones to try and get the extra seals as well? I like the fact that actually these rituals get more powerful as you go on, so the rewards are greater as you go on. That ramps up the level of excitement of the game as you get towards the end. So you might have a bit of a shaky start, but near the end you might get a whole bunch of seals and be able to start really placing them and get much more powerful. I like that lovely ramp up of power, and it matches with the level of difficulty as well, because you're going to have more rifts on the board, you're going to have more monsters appearing, and worst of all, you're going to have the monarch running around doing things as well. As I mentioned, I really like the fact that the characters, and I've only got 2 of them, but these 2 are very distinctive. Blade here has his own special track here, where if he kills things, he puts them up this track and he gets these special abilities which he can use all in one go if he decides to use his special ability drawing unlife energy, in which case this gets reset and all the abilities that are on the board happen at once. So he can have this one big explosion of power with his flaming sword. Well, it's not flaming, it's kind of a demon sword thing. So that's very cool, makes it very distinctive, and he's very much combat focused. Then we've got the conductor here, who's all about cats. He's got 2 cat models, these little cats, and they are on the board. He can summon them to him either in the world he's in or the other world. He can send them off and scare demons, which I love, this special ability that he's got. You can move a cat by a number of rooms, and then it hisses at one of the fiends and pushes it out of the room. A lovely thematic touch. And there's a whole bunch of things that the cats can do if you can get some of these upgrade cards. They can pick up components. They can be treated as ritual components. Very nice thematic feel there. And if you upgrade those cards, it can be really nice to just sort of send the cats off to do things. So I'm really hoping that they have lots more of these characters and they're as distinctive as these are. They're not just dashboards with different stats. They have their own special abilities that make them quite distinctive. The whole business with above and below is fantastic because the board state is resetting all the time. When you draw one of these event cards, the creatures are coming through the rifts, and then they're moving towards you and moving towards the rift if you're not in that particular world. There can be situations, of course, where you just shimmer over to the other world at crucial times, and actually really nice cinematic moments can come out of that. We've had some lovely cinematic moments where you're being bombarded by creatures coming into your room. You feel like you're going to die, and if you time it just right and you shimmer out of that space, you can disappear into the next world. It's really fun. I love that whole changing board state. And there are cards as well that can make the fiends transfer to the mirroring room to the other world as well. So you never know what's going to happen. You can have a plan and it can suddenly turn on a dime, and that makes it very exciting. I also love the fact that the whole combat system is slightly different. It's very easy to use. You draw just one card no matter how many fiends are in the same room as you, which is great. And it's very clever in that it might just use a special attack of the nastiest thing in the room, or it might actually use the weight of numbers by saying, oh, look, you've got to draw opportunity attacks for how many fiends are in that room. So that works very, very well. And it also gives each of these creatures a distinctive feel because they have their own special abilities. For example, the Skinwalker here will not only damage you, but he'll grab you and drag you into another room, even through a wall. Oh! Not only that, if the stars align in a horrible way, they can be enraged and you turn them over to an even nastier side. So they can be quite challenging. So that's about it, folks. I think I've covered everything. I've really enjoyed my time with this game. It's interesting. I'm going to keep playing this prototype until they release the final game because it's fun and I want to try different strategies, concentrate on different paths to victory to see if I can beat it. I've come nowhere near beating it yet. There are just too many things to juggle at once and I haven't managed to do it yet, but I'm sure it's possible. I'm going to beat it. I think it's a great game, actually, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the extra content that they come out for it, the different types of fiends. Hopefully there'll be some different map boards. I don't know. The different characters will be really interesting as well. And I just think it's a very clever idea. It takes the kind of tactical models on a board type stuff and gives it these interesting twists. Definitely the whole swapping between worlds thing is just a linchpin of the whole game, which is very clever, but also the twisting boards. And I don't think I've even pointed out, which is crazy, that these boards turn. So it's not a matter of getting a path straight to the center. They are going to turn and ruin your plans, and you can plan in advance for where it's going to turn, estimate where it's going to be. So that adds another level of decision making in here. There's a lot happening. This is one of the most interesting designs I've seen from Awakened Realms in terms of just a playable board game, not a big story game, that I've seen from them for a long while, and I think it's very cool. Well, actually, I say from a long while, but Stalker was really cool as well, so maybe not such a long while. They're bringing out some fantastic games lately, and I think this one is another winner. Now, of course, let me say again, this is a prototype. Things are going to change, and I'm just reviewing this prototype. And my opinions are my own. I'm not being paid for this. So I hope that information allows you to make a more informed purchasing decision. Now, if you don't know, the Esoteric Order of Gamers, I've got heaps and heaps of videos, but I've also got a website at orderofgamers.com. And there I have almost 500 rules, summaries and reference sheets that I've made over the years for all kinds of games. Lots of Awakened Realms ones, but lots of other games as well. You can download them and print them out and put them in your box and you'll find them incredibly useful. You'll never need to look at the rulebook again. I've also got an app which uses those same bespoke summaries. It's called Tabletop Codex and you can get it on the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. Download it, try it out. I think you'll find it incredibly handy. It's so easy to find answers to rules questions during a game and it's really good for learning games as well. Bye for now, everybody. Good gaming and thanks for watching.